I've always believed that marriage is like a well-designed system, reliable, predictable, built on solid foundations that can weather any storm. For 10 years, Natalie and I had operated like clockwork. Every morning, I'd wake at 6:30 to the sound of her humming in the kitchen, coffee already brewing, her dark hair catching the early light as she moved around our Portland suburban home with complete comfort. Our life together felt unshakable. I was 34, a senior systems analyst pulling in a comfortable six-figure salary. Natalie, at 35, had never needed to work, something she'd embraced wholeheartedly after we married, channeling her energy into our home and garden. This Saturday morning in March felt no different from hundreds before it. I found her in the garden, kneeling among rose bushes she'd cultivated for years, hands dirty with soil, pure contentment on her face. Natalie called out, holding up her phone. Even from 10 feet away, I could see bright colors of a concert poster. "Look at this. Ashes and Velvet just announced a Portland date. They're coming to the Moda Center next weekend." I recognized the band she'd been obsessed with since college. Her enthusiasm struck me as endearingly nostalgic, like holding on to a piece of her younger self that predated our marriage. "That's great, honey. You should definitely go," I replied. "Sophie already said she'd come with me. We can make a whole night of it. Dinner beforehand, maybe drinks after. It'll be like old times," she said excitedly. Sophie, her sister, was one of the few people I genuinely trusted with my wife. 2 years younger than Natalie, she'd always been more grounded, building a career in marketing while Natalie chose domestic comfort. "Sounds perfect. You deserve a fun night out," I told her. The words came easily because they were true. In 10 years of marriage, Natalie had never given me reason to worry. She wasn't the type to make reckless decisions. Our relationship was built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. Watching her scroll through concert information, I thought about our wedding day. How she'd laughed when my father's attorney insisted on the prenuptial agreement. She'd called it rich people paranoia, signing papers with carefully attitude of someone who couldn't imagine our marriage ending badly. The agreement was straightforward. In divorce, we'd each leave with what we'd brought in, plus equal split of shared assets, unless infidelity was involved. That clause specified proven adultery would result in the unfaithful party forfeiting claim to shared assets. Now, watching Natalie's excitement, that prenup felt like ancient history, irrelevant as insurance on disasters that would never happen. "When's the show?" I asked. "Next Saturday. Sophie's already looking at restaurants near the venue." "God, I haven't been this excited about anything in forever. Do you remember when we saw them in college? That was back when Zane Holloway was still doing acoustic sets before shows," she said, her voice full of nostalgia. I remembered. Early date, small venue, Natalie singing along to every song. That night, I'd known I was falling in love with her. Uninhibited joy. "I remember you knowing every single word," I said. "Still do. It's going to be incredible. Zane's voice has only gotten better with age," she replied. The way she said the lead singer's name, Zane, carried familiarity I'd noticed but never considered. Harmless celebrity admiration. The rest of the day unfolded with pleasant weekend predictability. We gardened together, ran errands, shared late lunch, discussing plans for the coming week. Natalie researched the concert, showing me photos from recent tours. The following Saturday morning, I watched Natalie prepare with calm confidence. She tried on 3 outfits, settling on jeans and vintage band t-shirt. "Sophie's picking me up at 6. We'll probably be home pretty late. You know how these things go," she said, while checking her appearance one last time. "No problem. Have fun and be safe," I replied. Those words would replay countless times over coming hours, taking on different meanings until they felt like the last innocent thing I'd ever said to my wife. As I watched her car disappear, I felt nothing but love and trust. I had no reason to suspect she was driving toward a decision that would destroy everything we'd built. Saturday evening found me in my home office, surrounded by comfortable chaos of a complex systems upgrade I'd been postponing for weeks. Lines of code scrolled across my monitor, the kind of intricate problem-solving that had always calmed my mind. The house felt peacefully quiet, Max, our golden retriever, sleeping at my feet. Distant traffic providing gentle backdrop to focused concentration. My phone rang at 9:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I'd been tracking progress, noting timestamps as I'd completed each module. Natalie's contact photo filled the screen, a picture from our anniversary dinner last year, her smile radiant in restaurant's warm lighting. "Hey, beautiful, how's the concert?" I answered. "Liam, oh my God, you won't believe what just happened," she said breathlessly. Her voice was different, elevated, carrying energy I'd never heard before. Something manic about her excitement made me pause the code compiler and give full attention. "Who's going on? Is everything okay?" I asked. "More than okay. We got invited backstage," she said, words tumbling over each other like she couldn't get them out fast enough. "Sophie and I were at the bar during intermission, and this guy, he's part of the band's crew, recognized my vintage tour shirt from their 2018 show and started talking to us. One thing led to another, and now we're backstage with Ashes and Velvet." I felt small flutter of unease, though I couldn't pinpoint why. "That's incredible, honey. I know how much this means to you," I said. "Liam, I'm standing 10 feet away from Zane Holloway, like actually talking to him. He remembered the Portland show from 2018. Can you believe that? He said the crowd here was one of his favorites from that entire tour," she gushed. The way she said his name again, Zane, carried that same familiarity I'd noticed before, but now felt charged with something more immediate, more dangerous. Some instinct began sounding quiet alarms. "That's amazing, Nat. I'm so happy for you," I managed. "He's exactly like I always imagined he'd be, funny, smart, so down to earth. We've been talking about music, about Portland, about everything. He's nothing like you'd expect a rock star to be," she continued, something in her voice. Intimacy, connection, that seemed beyond casual celebrity conversation. I'd been married to this woman 10 years. I knew every note in her vocal range, every subtle shift in tone. What I was hearing was the sound of someone experiencing attraction. "Where's Sophie?" I asked. "She's around somewhere, talking to the drummer. Liam, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about your answer," she said, her tone shifting to something more serious. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. In 10 years of marriage, she'd never prefaced a question that way. Whatever was coming next would change everything between us. "Okay," I said simply. "Do you remember that conversation we had a few years ago about hall passes, about how some couples have agreements about once-in-a-lifetime opportunities with celebrities?" she asked. I remembered. Hypothetical discussion sparked by some article. Late-night conversation between married couples, exploring boundaries that felt safely theoretical. We'd laughed, each naming our celebrity hall pass. Mine, Emma Stone, hers, Zane Holloway. Harmless fantasy because it seemed impossible. "I remember," I said carefully. "Zane just asked if I wanted to go back to his hotel room," she said. The words hit like physical blows. My entire world tilted, everything I'd believed about my wife, my marriage, my life, reorganizing into completely different configuration. She wasn't sharing exciting celebrity encounter. She was asking permission to cheat. "Natalie, are you seriously asking me what I think you're asking me?" I said, my voice deadly calm. "It doesn't mean anything, Liam. It's Zane Holloway. This will never happen again. It's like winning the lottery. You don't get a second chance at something like this," she pleaded. Her justification revealed everything about how she was thinking, how she valued our marriage against this opportunity. She wasn't torn, wasn't conflicted. She'd already decided. This call was seeking retroactive permission. "You're asking me to give you permission to sleep with another man," I stated flatly. "I'm asking you to understand that this is bigger than just sex. This is about dreams, about possibilities I never thought I'd have. Please, Liam, please try to understand," she begged. Something cold and crystalline settled over me, like watching my emotions from great distance. The trusting husband who had answered this call was disappearing, replaced by someone who understood exactly what needed to happen next. "You have 3 hours," I said. "What?" she asked, confusion clear in her voice. "You have 3 hours to decide who you want to be, Natalie. If you go to that hotel room, if you sleep with him, then our marriage is over. When you walk back into our house, I'll either be married to the woman I trusted for 10 years, or I'll be dealing with a stranger who destroyed everything we built for a few hours with a celebrity, I explained with mechanical precision. Liam, you're being dramatic. It doesn't have to be, she started. 3 hours, starting now. Choose wisely, I interrupted. I hung up before she could respond, finger finding end call button with steady precision. The silence that followed felt massive, like moment after explosion when your ears are ringing and the world has been fundamentally altered. At 12:47 a.m., exactly 3 hours after our conversation, I received a 10-second video message from Sophie's phone. The video showed Natalie kissing Zane Holloway in what appeared to be hotel hallway, her hands tangled in his hair, body pressed against his with unmistakable intent. I forwarded the video to Maya Rothman with message, documentation obtained, proceed with divorce papers. The trusting husband who had answered her phone call was gone. The next 2 hours passed with methodical precision of a well-executed code deployment. I moved through my house like a systems analyst troubleshooting critical failure, each step logical, purposeful, designed to protect the integrity of what remained after the breach had been identified and contained. Maya had texted me a list of immediate action items, and I worked through them with the same focus I'd applied to any complex project. First, I needed to secure the physical environment. At 1:15 a.m., I drove to 24-hour Home Depot on Sandy Boulevard, where fluorescent lighting and empty aisles felt surreal given the magnitude of what I was preparing for. I bought new locks for our front and back doors, high-quality deadbolts that couldn't be defeated by spare keys Natalie carried. The elderly night clerk barely looked up as I paid cash, probably assuming I was dealing with security concern rather than systematic dismantling of a marriage. Back home, I installed new locks with steady hands of someone who had performed routine maintenance countless times. Each turn of the screwdriver felt like closing door on the life I'd known. But there was no emotion in the action, only satisfaction of tasks completed correctly. While I worked, I called Maya Rothman again. "The documentation is clear and unambiguous," she told me. "Your wife's behavior constitutes adultery under Oregon law, and your prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause is ironclad. She'll leave this marriage with exactly what she brought into it, which, according to your records, was approximately $12,000 in personal savings and a 2019 Honda Civic." The numbers were stark. In 10 years of marriage, Natalie had contributed nothing to our shared wealth. I'd paid mortgage, utilities, insurance, property taxes. Her contributions had been domestic, cooking, cleaning, decorating, gardening. Valuable in their way, but not financially quantifiable in the divorce she'd just made inevitable. "What about spousal support?" I asked. "Oregon allows for spousal support in long-term marriages, but adultery significantly impacts the court's decision. Combined with her voluntary unemployment and the prenup's language, she'll receive minimal support, if any," Maya explained. "And how quickly can we execute this?" I pressed. "I'll have Jordan Fisk, our process server, ready by 6 p.m. tomorrow. Based on your wife's patterns, what time does she typically return home on Sundays?" she asked. I thought about our routine, predictable rhythm of weekends. "She usually gets back from errands around 4 p.m., but given everything that's happened, I'm not sure her patterns will hold," I said. "We'll position Jordan at 4:30 p.m. If she's not home by then, he'll wait. The key is serving her before she has time to calm down, think strategically, or seek her own legal counsel," Maya replied. As Maya spoke, I found myself moving through our bedroom, beginning the process of packing Natalie's belongings. This wasn't emotional revenge, it was practical necessity. If our marriage was over, she couldn't remain in the home I'd bought and maintained. But more than that, I needed her to understand immediately that her choice had consequences. I worked systematically, filling garbage bags with her clothes, shoes, jewelry, personal items. Each bag represented a year of our marriage, a segment of the life we'd built together, now being dismantled, with the same care I'd applied to decommissioning failed server. Max followed me from room to room, sensing change in the house's energy. When I sat on edge of our bed, my bed now, with one of Natalie's sweaters in my hands, he placed his massive head on my knee and looked up at me with a kind of unconditional loyalty my wife had just proven she didn't possess. "It's gonna be okay, boy," I told him, scratching behind his ears. "It's just going to be different." The dog's presence was oddly comforting. Unlike my wife, Max's affection wasn't conditional, wasn't dependent on excitement or novelty or once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. He was a living reminder that loyalty was possible, that commitment could be genuine and lasting. By 3:30 a.m., I had packed 7 large garbage bags with Natalie's possessions. Everything that was clearly hers, everything that held her personal history but not our shared memories. I left our wedding photos, vacation pictures, gifts we'd given each other. Those items would be dealt with later, when legal proceedings were complete. After loading Natalie's belongings, I drove to 24-hour storage facility on outskirts of Portland, where I rented small unit and deposited the 7 bags. I paid for 3 months in advance, enough time for divorce to be finalized and for Natalie to figure out her new living situation. On the drive home, I called Sophie. Went to his hotel room. I tried to talk her out of it, I swear I did. I told her she was making the biggest mistake of her life, but she wouldn't listen. Sophie said when she answered, "Sophie, I need you to understand something. In about 14 hours, Natalie is going to be served with divorce papers. She's going to discover that her decision tonight has cost her everything," I said calmly. "You're not serious," Sophie gasped. "We had prenuptial agreement with infidelity clause. She signed away her rights to marital assets the moment she walked into that hotel room," I explained. After a long pause, Sophie said quietly, "Even if she's my sister, cheating is cheating." By 5 a.m., I was back home, sitting in my kitchen making final preparations. The house felt different already. Quieter, more spacious, like system running more efficiently after unnecessary programs had been terminated. At 4 p.m., I positioned myself where I could monitor security cameras. Jordan Fisk arrived at 4:25 p.m., carrying leather portfolio and calm demeanor of someone who delivered bad news countless times. At 4:47 p.m., Natalie's Honda Civic pulled into our driveway. Through my office window, I watched my wife of 10 years step out of her car with casual confidence of someone returning home from ordinary day. She moved with same easy grace I'd observed that morning in our garden, but everything about the context had changed so fundamentally that she might as well have been a stranger approaching someone else's house. She looked tired but not devastated, rumpled but not ashamed. Her hair was pulled back in messy ponytail, and she wore the same clothes from the night before, now wrinkled and carrying invisible weight of her betrayal. She checked her phone as she walked toward front door, probably expecting to find apologetic text messages from her husband. The sound of Natalie's key hitting new lock mechanism was audible even from my office. Sharp, metallic protest that would be her first indication that something had changed. She tried again, jiggling the key with frustrated determination of someone who believed the problem was mechanical rather than intentional. After third failed attempt, she rang the doorbell. Jordan opened the door with practiced calm. Through security camera, I could see Natalie's face cycle through confusion, concern, and beginning of genuine alarm as she processed presence of stranger in her home. "Mrs. Natalie Brennan?" Jordan asked professionally. "Yes, but who are you? Why are you in my house?" she demanded. "I'm Jordan Fisk, licensed process server for the state of Oregon. I'm here to serve you with legal documents on behalf of your husband, Liam Brennan," he explained. I watched her face transform as the words registered. Casual confidence evaporated, replaced by something closer to panic as she tried to process what was happening. "Legal documents? What are you talking about? Where is my husband?" she asked frantically. "Ma'am, I need you to accept service of these documents," Jordan said, extending manila envelope containing divorce papers, financial restraining orders, and formal notice that her adultery had voided her claim to marital assets. "I don't understand. This is some kind of mistake," she protested. "Ma'am, these documents detail the dissolution of your marriage and your legal obligations going forward," Jordan replied. The word dissolution seemed to hit her like physical blow. I watched her stumble backward, hand reaching for door frame to steady herself as reality began to penetrate her shock. "Dissolution? You mean divorce? But we just had a fight. This is crazy," she said desperately. "What?" She finally took envelope with trembling hands. "I need to talk to my husband. There's been some kind of misunderstanding," she pleaded. "Ma'am, I also need to inform you that effective immediately, You're restrained from accessing joint financial accounts and from entering this property without prior legal arrangement, Jordan continued. During this property? This is my house, she shouted. According to these documents, this property belongs solely to your husband. You have 30 days to arrange for removal of your personal belongings, which are currently in Storage Unit 247 at Secure Space on Powell Boulevard, Jordan explained. I watched Natalie's legs give out. She sat down hard on our front steps, manila envelope falling open in her lap, legal papers scattering like leaves. Her face had gone completely white. Jordan stepped back into house and closed door, leaving Natalie sitting on our front steps, surrounded by legal documents that had just destroyed her life. My phone rang. I let it ring through the voicemail twice before answering on the third call. Liam, what the hell is going on? There's a man in our house saying you're divorcing me, she said, her voice breaking. How was your night with Zane Holloway? I asked calmly. Silence stretched so long I wondered if call had dropped. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. How did you? She started. Sophie sent me a video. 10 seconds of you and him in hotel hallway, making your choice very clear, I said. It was one night. One stupid, meaningless night. How can you throw away 10 years over one mistake? She cried. You didn't make a mistake, Natalie. You made a choice. You chose Zane Holloway over our marriage, I replied coldly. Please, Liam, please don't do this. We can fix this, she begged. The woman I married wouldn't have needed to fix this because she never would have broken it in the first place, I said. I hung up before she could respond, then immediately blocked her number. Through security camera, I watched her gather scattered divorce papers and walk to her car, moving like someone in shock. As her Honda Civic disappeared down our street, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. The hardest part was over. 6 months later, I stood in my garden on a crisp October morning, harvesting the last tomatoes from the vegetable plot that had replaced Natalie's rose beds. The transformation felt symbolic, beauty replaced by practicality, ornamental giving way to functional. My Saturday routine had evolved into something entirely my own. Coffee first, then garden work that grounded me after spending weeks immersed in systems and code. Max supervised from his spot under the maple tree, content to watch his human navigate this new version of their shared life. The house had been transformed as well. Natalie's decorative touches, throw pillows in colors I'd never understood, scented candles, artwork chosen for emotional impact, had been replaced by functional minimalism that reflected my actual preferences rather than marriage compromises. The doorbell rang at 10:15 a.m. Through the window, I saw Sophie holding 2 coffee cups and wearing the careful expression of someone bringing unwelcome news. Morning, Liam. I brought coffee from that place on Burnside you used to like, she said as I opened the door. She followed me to the back deck where I'd installed new teak furniture designed for comfort rather than appearance. How are you doing? She asked, studying my face for signs of hidden damage. I'm doing well. Better than well, actually. I'm doing exactly what I want without having to consider anyone else's needs, I replied honestly. That sounds lonely, she said. It sounds peaceful, I countered. Sophie gathered courage to say whatever she'd come to say. I wanted to update you on Natalie. I know you probably don't want to hear about her, but I thought you should know how things have turned out, she said carefully. I'm listening, I said. She's living with our parents again. Has been since about a month after the divorce was finalized. She tried to find her own place, but without work experience or credit, landlords wouldn't take her seriously. Sophie explained. The image of my 35-year-old ex-wife sleeping in her childhood bedroom struck me as both pathetic and appropriate. What about work? I asked. It's been challenging. 10 years out of the workforce is hard to explain to employers, especially when you chose not to work rather than being unable to find employment, Sophie said. Sophie's phrasing revealed the reality Natalie was discovering. Choosing financial dependence for a decade had consequences beyond relationship security. Eventually, she found part-time work at a dental office, filing, answering phones. $15 an hour, maybe 25 hours weekly, when they're busy, she continued. I did the mental math. Maybe $19,000 annually before taxes, less than she used to spend on clothes during our marriage. Our parents are helping with expenses. They're not happy about having a 35-year-old daughter move back home, but they won't let her be homeless, Sophie said. That's generous, I replied. They're frustrated. They ask constantly when she's going to take responsibility for the situation she created. They blame her for what happened, not you, she added. This carried more weight than expected. Learning that her parents held their daughter responsible felt like validation I hadn't realized I needed. What does she say? I asked. Sophie hesitated. She says it was a mistake that shouldn't have cost her entire life. She says you overreacted. The familiar refrain revealed that Natalie still hadn't accepted responsibility. 6 months later, she was still casting herself as victim rather than author of her consequences. She still doesn't understand what she did wrong, I observed. I don't think she does. She talks about it like a moment of weakness that should have been forgiven. Sophie agreed. And what do you tell her? I asked. I tell her that cheating is cheating. I tell her you had every right to protect yourself from someone who would betray you for a celebrity encounter, Sophie said firmly. Have you heard anything about Zane Holloway? I asked. Nothing. According to Natalie, she never heard from him again. He moved on to the next city, probably the next woman. I don't think he even remembers her name, Sophie said. The irony was perfect. Natalie had destroyed a 10-year marriage for an encounter with someone who'd forgotten her before his tour bus left Portland. Does she ever ask about me? I asked. She asks if you're dating anyone, if you seem happy, Sophie replied. And what do you tell her? I pressed. That you're building a good life for yourself, she said. Are you dating anyone? Sophie asked. I'm not closed off to the possibility, but I'm learning the difference between being lonely and being alone. When I do choose to share my life again, it'll be with someone who understands that commitment means something, I replied. Natalie sometimes talks about reconciliation, Sophie said carefully. The suggestion was fundamentally misguided. Sophie, the woman I married, would never have made that phone call. That woman doesn't exist anymore, I said. As Sophie prepared to leave, she paused. What should I tell her about this conversation? She asked. Tell her that I wish her no harm, but I feel no responsibility for the life she chose to create. Tell her that closure doesn't require forgiveness. Sometimes it simply requires protecting your own dignity, I said. That evening, I sat in my office reviewing an email from Maya Rothman suggesting I write about my experience. As Max settled at my feet, I opened a new document titled The 3-Hour Window. 6 months ago, I'd lost a marriage. What I'd actually lost was an illusion, and what I'd gained was more valuable, the knowledge that I would never again compromise my self-respect for someone else's comfort. Justice didn't always arrive with dramatic flair. Sometimes it was simply the natural result of choices playing out over time. Sometimes justice was just refusing to rescue someone from the life they'd chosen to create. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I know it sounds cliché, but I believe that my wife Joan and I had the perfect marriage. We'd been married for 20 years. We were every bit as in love as when we first met. We heard stories about couples with problems ending in divorce, but neither of us could imagine that happening to us. From the beginning, we had a great relationship based on respect and the ability to communicate about anything. We kept no secrets and talked about everything together. We were best friends and lovers. We valued spending time together and being a couple, not two solo partners. If something bothered either one of us, we could tell the other and get support. We didn't keep feelings buried. If I did something that bothered her, she told me, and vice versa. We were quick to compliment each other, and if we wanted something, we said what it was. No games. We were that way about intimacy, too. We did everything together. We had a fantastic love life. As far as finances go, we both work and get paid well. Our combined household income is over $250,000 a year. We each put 3/4 of our paychecks into our joint bank account. The other quarter goes into our own private accounts. We're free to use our personal money however we want without justification. We mutually discuss any major expenses from our joint funds. We both get 5 weeks of paid time off each year. We usually spend 2 weeks of vacation together in the summer, a week in winter for a ski trip, and a week in autumn. That leaves us each 1 week, which we take separately but simultaneously during spring. We jokingly call this week our sabbatical. Joan usually visits her family or travels with girlfriends. I usually go on outdoor adventures with male friends. Even during that week apart, we touch base daily and keep no secrets. The time apart always ends with several days making up for lost time in bed. Neither of us takes our jobs too seriously. They're just jobs, not our lives. We don't work much overtime and have strict rules about not bringing work home. Work stops at 5 daily, and by 6, we're both home looking forward to an evening together. We prefer spending time together rather than going out with friends or doing things separately. When our kids were younger, they took up much of our time, but as they're practically grown, we still enjoy each other's company more than anything. Speaking of kids, Adam is 19 and finishing his second year at the University of Texas. Ebby is 17 and a senior in high school with a full ride to UC San Diego. We'll miss our kids once Ebby leaves, but we're looking forward to resuming life as a couple. We've joked about becoming nudists at home and enjoying each other's company in every room to celebrate our regained freedom. I enjoy golfing. Joan prefers tennis. Our income has afforded us memberships at the best country clubs. The funny thing is that we enjoy each other's company so much that I'm her tennis partner and she's mine for golf. Not because we're possessive, but because we're each other's best friends. We go to movies once a week, alternating who picks. We have date night every Friday or Saturday. As foodies, we pick new or highly rated restaurants. I'm into craft brews and cocktails, so we follow dinner with a trip to a great bar. We end date night with dancing at a nearby nightclub. I used to be terrible at dancing. Joan was great about it. She only wanted to dance with me, even though I wasn't up to her skill level. Many men would ask her to dance, but she always turned them down. "I didn't come here to dance," she told me once. "I came here to dance with you." So I took lessons. We went together and enjoyed it so much we kept going. We're now proficient in several styles, from ballroom to salsa and Texas two-step. When we have a date night, I'm proud to spend the night dancing with my beautiful bride. Whenever Joan wants to try a new hobby, like crocheting or painting, guess who she drags with her to class? Me! The irony is that I have as much fun as she does. She's better at crocheting while I excel at pottery and painting. We walk the dog together. We grocery shop together. We do yard work together. We even get mani-pedis together. We do everything together. Well, almost everything. The only thing we don't do together is get our hair done. I get my hair cut at Floyd's barbershop near my office during lunch once a month. For as long as I can remember, Joan has had every other Wednesday off for a spa day, to be pampered, massaged, and get her hair done. We have a big house on a lake, with a pool, a boat, and an RV for luxury camping. We travel frequently. Things literally couldn't be better. I married well. Never have I harbored doubts that Joan loves me and only me. Not once has she done or said anything to make me question her loyalty. Likewise, I've never thought of straying. I'm happy with what I have. Plus, Joan ensures we have great love frequently, which means I have no interest in anyone else. One day, I was feeling under the weather and came home from work in the middle of the afternoon. I didn't find Joan in bed with someone. I found something else that didn't set off alarm bells at first. It just seemed odd. Among the mail was one of those advertising inserts that get stuffed in your box. Usually, I ignore them, but this one caught my eye. It said in big, bold letters, "We miss you." Looking closer, I noticed it was from Golden Sunday Spa, the same spa Joan has been a member of for years, the one she goes to every other Wednesday. According to the flyer, she was a former client, and they were offering a steep discount to come back. Included was an account number and telephone number for a sales agent. Thinking there must be a mix-up, and knowing tomorrow was her Wednesday off, I decided to resolve the problem for her. I called the number and spoke to a polite salesperson named Gwen, who informed me that the account was one of their older, inactive accounts. When I asked what that meant, she said Joan had canceled the membership over 5 years ago. She kindly offered to reactivate it at no charge, with 25% off for 6 months if I signed a 2-year contract. I was confused. Joan went to the spa every other Wednesday. Why would she cancel her membership? "I'm sorry, Gwen," I said, trying not to sound condescending, "but there must be a record-keeping error. My wife has been going to your spa religiously every other Wednesday for over 10 years. I heard Gwen tapping on her keyboard. "That's very unlikely. We have a sophisticated membership system. According to our records, your wife joined in 2008. Does that sound right?" "Yeah, that sounds right. We had just moved to Frisco, so doesn't it show her attendance every other Wednesday?" "Let me see," Gwen replied, tapping more keys. "Sir, are you sure she's been going to this spa? Our records show she came here about 20 times, most often with a guest, sporadically over 3 years, and hasn't returned since 2010. She canceled her membership after not visiting for almost 2 years. That made no sense. I sat there thinking of all possible explanations. Maybe Joan switched spas and never thought it important enough to tell me. "Sir?" asked Gwen. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" "Yeah," I said, as something she mentioned sparked a thought. "You said she usually came with a guest. Would you happen to have a record of who that was?" "We should," Gwen explained. "Guests must show ID and register for safety reasons. Let me see." A few more clicks and then, "Oh, wow." "What did you find?" I asked. "Sir, I probably shouldn't say anything," Gwen replied, hesitating. "I don't want to get in trouble." "It's fine, Gwen," I reassured her. "What did you find?" "Well," she hesitated. "She came by herself the first 2 times. After that, she had the same male guest every visit." The hairs on my neck stood up. "Will you give me his name?" "Sir, I think that's for your wife to tell you," Gwen said, sounding distraught. "Gwen, please, I swear nobody will know where I got the information," I pleaded. "I need to know." Gwen sighed, then said, "His name is Connor Wilkins." "Thank you, Gwen." Connor Wilkins was the owner of Joan's firm and her immediate boss. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Gwen asked nervously. Connor and his wife Tiffany were among our best friends. They lived just around the corner, and we'd been out together or to each other's homes countless times. Our boys played lacrosse together. Our girls were best friends. "No, that's all, thanks," I said, and hung up. Never had I seen anything indicating something between Joan and Connor. When we hung out, they never disappeared together or seemed overtly affectionate or flirty. It was always Connor with Tiffany and Joan with me, or the women together while Connor and I hung out grilling or smoking cigars. Was it possible they'd been having an affair all this time? Weren't there supposed to be telltale signs of infidelity? I mentally checked the list. Staying out late or not coming home normally? No. We were always together. More concerned with physical appearance? No, she'd always been that way. Changes in wardrobe? More revealing? No, she always dressed fashionably but not in a bad way. Changes in sexual behavior? No, she was just as sexual as always. Change in frequency of intimacy? No, we had made love at least 4 days a week, every week. Becoming emotionally distant? Not at all. We were just as loving and communicative as always. Hiding things, locking phones, emails? No. I knew Joan's passwords, and she knew mine. But if what Gwen said was true and they'd been having an affair, it had been going on for at least 10 years. How would I know what normal behavior was? I racked my brain, trying to think when an affair might have begun. Then it hit me. Almost 11 years ago, Joan had a miscarriage in the 2nd trimester that devastated her. She needed counseling to get back to normal. Afterward, she decided to get her tubes tied to avoid the chance of it happening again. Could that have been when it started? If she was having an affair? What if they were in love? What if they were just waiting until our kids moved out to divorce Tiffany and me? Was my perfect marriage just a sham? I thought about our relationship. I loved my wife unconditionally and was absolutely confident she loved me the same way. You could see it in her eyes. People have commented on it many times. At dinner last month, the server came to me when Joan had gone to the powder room and said, "Your wife loves you so much. You can see it when she looks at you. Her whole face lights up." I told Joan about the comment when she returned, and she kissed me and said she loved me more than anything or anyone. Were we unhappy? I wasn't. I was blissfully happy. Nothing was missing in my life or my relationship with Joan. Was she unhappy? I couldn't believe so. She told me all the time how happy and lucky she was to have me. Maybe she was lucky because I was so clueless I didn't catch on to her affair. Maybe she was happy because she got to have the family she wanted and all the secret affairs she craved on the side. My thoughts went to darker places the longer I sat. I forced myself to stop. I didn't know for sure Joan was having an affair. All I knew was that years ago, she went to the spa with Connor frequently and never told me. For the past several years, she continued telling me about her bi-monthly spa days. So either she changed spas without telling me, or she'd been lying. I wondered what else she was hiding. The only other times we weren't together were when she was working, which placed her with Connor and her yearly personal vacation. Was it possible Joan had been lying about where she went every year? Was I that clueless? An idea hit me. I grabbed my phone, hoping I had Tiffany's number. I scrolled through my contacts and found her. I knew she worked from home, so Connor wouldn't be with her. I called, and she answered right away. She was surprised it was me calling. "Is something wrong, Troy?" she asked. "No, not at all," I lied. "I was just thinking about Joan and I celebrating our 20th anniversary this year." "That's right," she said. "Congratulations. Oh, are you planning a surprise party?" "Sort of," I replied. "I thought it would be cool if the four of us went somewhere together, like to our cabin in Colorado for a few days." "That sounds great," she replied. "Connor and I love the mountains. When were you thinking, and for how long?" I checked my calendar for our annual sabbatical dates and gave them to Tiffany. "Well," Tiffany hesitated, "that would work for me, but unfortunately, Connor has his annual hunting trip that week. He does it each fall." Warning bells went off loudly. "Every year?" I asked. "Yeah," she confirmed. "For at least 8 or 9 years. Connor's very picky about the dates, and I can never schedule anything then." "Is that right?" I asked. "Well, you should know, Troy. Joan has that same week off every year. The company shuts down for the whole week, and every employee gets an extra paid leave week. Connor calls it the annual sabbatical." I was stunned and couldn't speak. "You there, Troy?" Tiffany asked, concerned. "Yeah," I said. "I guess that won't work then." I wanted to end the call. "Are you okay? You don't sound good," Tiffany asked. "Is there something you want to talk about?" "I'm fine. I'll see if another time works and get back to you," I lied. "Do me a favor?" "Sure. What do you need?" "I want this to be a surprise for Joan," I explained. "Could you keep this between us?" "No problem." As I was about to hang up, Tiffany spoke again. "Troy, if you change your mind about wanting to talk, call me back. I can tell something's bothering you." "Thanks, Tiffany," I said. "I'll do that." I ended the call and sat staring into space as my world came crashing down. If what I suspected was true, I couldn't see any way to salvage my marriage. I couldn't continue living a lie, being the gullible old. It was unforgivable that my wife had done this behind my back for years. I thought she loved me. I couldn't stand that Joan and Connor had kept this secret from Tiffany and me. That night, I pretended to be sick to avoid Joan. I texted her that I was staying in the guest room to prevent her from catching anything. The next morning, I convinced her to go to her spa day rather than stay home with me. After she left, I sat down and formulated my plan for revenge. My wife's betrayal deserved something special. And Connor, that backstabbing son of a blip, he'd pay too. First, I hired a private investigator to follow them on their spa day. I needed concrete evidence. Sure enough, by evening, I had photos of them checking into a hotel, kissing in the hallway, and exiting together hours later. I also discovered they owned a secret condo together in a neighboring town, their little love nest. Second, I contacted my attorney and began quietly separating our finances. I moved my portion of our joint savings to a new account she couldn't access. I documented everything, including the private investigator's findings. Third, I compiled all their text messages and emails from Joan's phone and computer backups I had access to. They weren't careful. They'd been getting away with it for so long, they'd grown sloppy. I waited until a week before our anniversary. I invited Connor and Tiffany over for a special anniversary dinner, saying I wanted their help planning a surprise for Joan. They came, unsuspecting. When everyone was seated in our dining room, I stood up for a toast. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady. "This is a special occasion, not just because our anniversary is next week, but because tonight is about revelations." Joan looked at me with confusion. "Troy, what's going on?" I smiled coldly. "Joan, remember how I was sick a few weeks ago? That was the day I discovered you haven't been to Golden Sun Spa in over 10 years. The color drained from her face. Connor stiffened in his chair. "I'd like to share something with everyone," I continued, pulling out a tablet. I tapped the screen, and our large living room TV displayed a slideshow of photos, Joan and Connor entering the hotel, kissing passionately, and leaving together hours later. Tiffany gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Connor? What is this?" "That's not all," I continued. "I have records of their condo purchases, their secret credit card, and, most damning, a decade of text messages detailing their affair." I turned to Tiffany. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I only discovered this a few weeks ago myself." Joan stood up, tears in her eyes. "Troy, please, we can explain—" "Explain what?" I interrupted. "How you've been having an affair with my supposed friend for at least 10 years? How you both lie about your sabbaticals to spend them together? How you came home to me after letting him have you?" Connor tried to speak, but I cut him off. "Don't bother, Connor. I've already sent copies of everything to your company's board of directors, highlighting how you've been sexually involved with a subordinate for years. That's a clear violation of company policy, isn't it? I believe they're meeting tomorrow morning to discuss your future." Connor's face went pale. "You didn't." "I did," I confirmed. "I also sent copies to both sets of our parents, our children, and our closest friends. Everyone will know what kind of people you really are." I turned back to Joan. "As for us, I've already filed for divorce. My lawyer will contact you. I've documented the adultery thoroughly, so don't expect much sympathy from the judge." Joan was sobbing now. "Troy, please, I love you. It wasn't what you think." "Save it," I said. "You had 10 years to come clean. 10 years of lies. Did you really think I wouldn't find out eventually?" I looked at both of them. "You might be wondering about your secret condo. Funny thing, I had the locks changed yesterday and transferred the utilities to my name. I've donated all your belongings to a homeless shelter. The property manager has instructions not to let either of you in." Connor stood up, his face red with anger. "You can't do that. We own that place." "Actually, you don't anymore," I smiled. "The condo is now owned by a trust I established for victims of infidelity. Your little love nest will now house people whose lives were destroyed by cheaters like you." I turned to Tiffany, who sat shell-shocked. "Tiffany, I've arranged for a car to take you home. My lawyer can recommend someone excellent if you need one. I'm truly sorry you had to find out this way." I walked to the front door and opened it. "Connor, I suggest you leave before I do something we'll both regret. Joan, you have until tomorrow to pack your essentials. After that, the locks will be changed. Connor stormed out, cursing. Joan fell to her knees, pleading. Troy, please, we can work through this. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of lies, I corrected her. Leave your keys and credit cards on the table on your way out. After they left, Tiffany remained seated, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, I said softly. I didn't want to hurt you, but you deserved the truth. She nodded slowly. How did you figure it all out? A spa membership renewal notice, I replied. Small things can unravel the biggest lies. 6 months later, I was sitting on my deck overlooking the lake. The divorce had been finalized, heavily in my favor due to the documented adultery. Connor had lost his job and most of his assets in his divorce from Tiffany. Last I heard, he and Joan were living in a small apartment, both working entry-level jobs after their reputations were destroyed. My phone rang. It was Tiffany. We'd become friends through our shared trauma. Hey, Troy, she said. Just checking if we're still on for dinner tonight? Absolutely, I replied, looking forward to it. As I hung up, I smiled. The perfect marriage had been a perfect lie, but there's nothing more satisfying than perfect revenge. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.